All right. Hello, EDL 602 students. Now we are in week 7, and our big focus for week 7 is your SMART goals and implementation plan. What I like to call it the um, data project part 2, because it's all about your data and analyzing your data. So, what I like to do is share with you your upcoming activities. So, here are some helpful charts to kind of put your mind around what does it mean to be a SMART goal. And we've heard these if you've been in education for any length of time, that a SMART goal is going to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And so these little charts that are added to your module is to just kind of give you some ideas in mind about being specific, what that actually means, being measurable, achievable, relevant, timely. So these charts are listed there to kind of help you with all of that. Um, I personally like all of them. Each one gives the information you need in order to know that that you got to be specific. You got to clearly define the goal. You have to make it measurable. What is it that you want to see at the end? What is your outcome? What do you want to achieve? Achievable. Is your goal achievable in the allotted time? What steps must you take in order to achieve this goal? What is it you need to do to make sure that you're going to get there? And then be realistic. How long does it take to reach your goal? If you're at, say, you picked a standard that is at 31% proficiency. Well, it's kind of unrealistic to say that you'll be at 100% proficient on that particular standard. To me, that's unrealistic. I would go from 30 to probably 50 just so that I'm making some traction. And then thinking about how long it will take to reach your goal. If you say that you're going to start in September and you're going to be at your goal at December, is that a lot enough time to actually reach that goal? To teach one standard, I'd say yes. To teach a more complex standard that has many different prerequisites to the actual standard, then I would say no. And we also have to make sure that things are time sensitive. We only have the 180 days that we teach students. So we have to be conscious of how much time we are allotting in interventions to make sure that we're reaching our goals. So time sensitive goals are more likely to be achieved, whereas loose thought will get piled behind to-do list that keeps on growing. So if I say by December, I will have mastered this goal. I've time stamped it. It's doable. I am focused because I know that I'm going to come back and check to make sure I've mastered that goal. All right, so these sample templates that are here, I'm going to come out of this for just a moment because I want to share these templates in a bigger format so you can see them. Now, this is not sharing, of course. Takes me just a minute to share for some reason. My computer has a hard time with that task. Now we're at the SMART goals and implementation plan. You have two in the module. One is this clean document that you will fill out. You don't have to clean it up, it is already to go. But I want to also show you the document that's not cleaned up. It's the one that has all the examples, and we're going to just kind of walk through that for just a moment so that you can see exactly what it should look like when you fill it out. If I can get my computer to share it. Here we go. So this is just an example, just an example. It is partially filled out and there is one in your module. When you fill it out, you take your chart. Remember part 1. What is your grade level? What is your subject area? And that one area of focus. What is your area of focus? What standard? I selected one of the two standards from the data I showed you guys on our virtual class. Root cause. This is where you're typing in the narrative portion. What might explain the underperformance, whether it is instruction, support access? You're going to write 1 to 2 paragraphs to explain the possible root cause for the area of weakness that is identified. So, if I were to talk about a root cause, I could say that students lacked instruction on a prior standard that builds up to this standard. And we see that a lot in math and in ELA, because if we're having a hard time with summarizing, did we learn main idea in detail? If we're having a hard time in analyzing two particular texts, do we know how to analyze one text? So when we start thinking about root causes, what is it that is causing this group of students to struggle gaining this standard, right? So that is what your root cause analysis narrative will be about. Now, the next portion of this is your SMART goal. You are to write this SMART goal using the structure below. This is the formula. Make sure it is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So I did type in just an example so that you can see what that should look like. I have put a timestamp on it. I've talked about what percentage of my targeted group, my lowest performing students, what grade will make gains in ELA on my particular standard as measured on the end of the year map. So I'm giving myself a whole lot more time. I'm going to increase from 31.5%. And how am I going to do that? What are my interventions? I said the use of interventions, and I should have been more specific, so please be more specific with your interventions. The use of the literacy specialist for tier 3 pullout and working with the academic tutors. If you have any other methods or supports that will be provided, that is the last portion of your write up that you will put in place. Mine is just an example. Yours should look different than this because you're using your data that you've accumulated as well as the strategies that are put in place for your data. Now, the action plan portion of this is this particular part here. This is the actual action plan. This is directions for how to fill in your action plan. So when we look at these, strategy, what do you plan to do? What are you going to implement to improve test scores and student achievement in the identified weaknesses? Think of evidence-based strategies, right? You're going to implement, and this is just an example, implement an uninterrupted 60-minute reading time that focuses on the reading skill identified, programs, and the Common Core, college and career readiness standards, right? Then it's who's responsible. What person is responsible for implementation? So you're going to list everyone that will provide services and have responsibility in the implementation of the plan. So as an example, the classroom teacher, instructional coach, the principal. These are people who will actually have the responsibility of carrying out this plan. The timeline, being very specific, starting and ending your timeline. September 2025, it starts and it'll go to January 2026. If the date is from end of the year, spring from the previous year, you could use which would be when the next benchmark assessment would occur. So if you use end of the year app, right? then you would be looking at your first benchmark assessment, which is the one that is given before. Ours is given the last 2 weeks of September, or yours may be the first week of October, but whenever you're given that. So, timeline for implementation, you need to have a start date and a checkpoint, an end date. This is when we're going to check to make sure that the strategies we've put in place are working. Now, what resources are needed? What resources will you need to implement the area of focus? So, is there a specific program you're going to use? Put that here. If it's iReady, if it's Edmentum Study Island, Exact Path, Imagine Learning is so many different programs that people use, but you're going to list those here. If you have academic tutors, literacy specialists, instructional coaches, those resources. Are there any specific resources you will need to implement the chosen strategy? When will you monitor the progress? So, when we start talking about progress monitoring efforts, think about MTSS. There is a plan for progress monitoring that should be in place. What is the plan for progress monitoring? And when will it take place? So, you need to be specific here. When will you monitor the progress of the plan and how will you monitor it? How will you do it? When will you do it? Those are the two big things that you're going to fill in this box with. And then you need to have evidence of progress. What is the next assessment data you will use to determine if the plan was successful? So when we start talking about evidence of progress, what assessment data will you use? Will it be benchmark data? Will it be some form of a summative assessment? But that is what you will be listing in this box right here. So that is how you will create your SMART goals implementation plan. That is all that it is. This will require some thought on your part. So please don't wait to the very last minute to try to throw it together because it's not going to work for you. Because you got to spend some time thinking about what is the root cause. You got to spend some time on putting your actual SMART goal together. And then you got to spend time on filling out this chart to be very specific on your focus area. So, with all of that being said, if you have questions about filling out the data chart, please send me very specific questions when you email me so that I'm able to answer those questions directly for you. So that is what you will be turning in for this particular assignment. And as I said before, you are going to use the data chart that is in there. There is a clean chart that you are to use in order to complete this assignment. You don't have to take any information off of here. You're just going to fill it in. Make sure you add a cover letter to it, cover sheet, cover page, not letter. Add a cover page to your assignment. And that is all you will need to submit for this assignment. I'm sorry. Please include your data. Please include your data. Always include your data on all of these assignments. So with that being said, let me go back to our Canvas module, shell. We've looked at the two sheets that we will be using. They're all in the module. All you need to do is download them to use them. Now, as we look at our Dropbox for this assignment, everything you need to know is in the Dropbox. This is the second portion of your SMART Goals assignment. You will take the data you analyzed and the one area of focus that you put in part one. You will identify the target population, explain a possible root cause. You will come up with your SMART goal. You will complete the action plan and you will turn in this assignment. But remember, you have to have a copy of part one data analysis, the template for this one, and your data must all be uploaded to complete this assignment. The rubric is here and it is in detail. Please take a minute to read this in its entirety and check it against what you have to submit. Current data is used and is included with this assignment. The target population is provided. A SMART goal was created using this formula to create it. Um, a strategy for implementation was created, and the required components are provided and are reasonable for the SMART goal. And that's all of the things that are on your on that chart, the actual plan. And then you have it all formatted on the template the way that it should be with your cover sheet. Hopefully that makes sense and you all will get that done and submitted in a timely fashion, which, our time is about up. When we hit week 7, it's coming towards the close of our time together. So just make sure we get that assignment in by October 5th. And then your next assignment is due October 6th and the 8th. And I will talk about those two in the next instructor video. But for now, you have week 7 all wrapped up with a bow. If you have any questions or any concerns about what I've said in this video or anything you've read, please don't hesitate to send me an email. I'm just going to ask that you're very specific in your questions so that I can answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you. You guys are amazing and you've been doing a great job thus so far. So keep up the good work and I will see you. Well, I will be on the next video to give you some updates. Have a great evening.